On to the next session on Beyond the Harvest. And this session is about unlocking value through innovations in storage, processing, and supply chain. I would like to invite on the dais Mr. Prasanna Rao, co-founder and CEO, Arya Collateral Warehousing, Dr. Prithwi Singh, co-founder and CEO of Khetika, Mr. Praveen Gupta, Vice President, South Asia and Middle East Grain Pro, Mr. Deepak Rajmohan, CEO, Green Pod Labs, Mr. Ashwin Pawade, co-founder and lead partnerships, S4S Technologies, Mr. Subhadeep Sanyal, India lead Wavemaker Impact, who's going to be our moderator for this session. Could I please request the panelists to come onto the stage? Thank you.
Well, good evening. I know there's a frenzy of networking happening, and we're kind of the last folks standing between networking and everyone else. But we'll try and make this interesting, and hopefully some of the learnings from this panel can be shared later on to folks as well. But this is, we're discussing post-harvest, and we're discussing market linkages, we're discussing value addition, which is often, I think, one of the most kind of less talked spaces when it comes to food and agri, and definitely one of the most underrated, but definitely one of the sectors which has been adding the most value to stakeholders, right, over the years. But in my opinion, it requires more glory. So that's what we'll attempt to do with this panel. Now, all of you are stalwarts in your space, and I think it's incredible for ThinkAg to have assembled such a panel. I'll quickly kind of set what I thought will be an interesting way to discuss all of this, and then would let you do the talking, as Raman did earlier in the morning. So I think, very broadly speaking, would love to first understand maybe just a quick round from everyone about who each of you are as a business, and maybe very quickly, who do you serve in terms of the principal stakeholder and the problem that you're solving. And then we can quickly move to one challenge and one tailwind in your business that you're facing. And then I think the larger takeaway from this panel would be about how do we look at innovation, and what are some of the key things that we as a group and all of you as operators are looking forward to over the next 5 years. But let's start there. So one quick introduction about your business, key stakeholder that you're solving a challenge for, one tailwind in the business, and one challenge that you critically face. We can start from you, Prasanna, and come all the way here.
Hi, I lead Arya.ag. We work as a platform to basically solve for two very basic problems in Indian agriculture, post-harvest specifically. So we basically see if we could enable choice for farmers and their organizations to decide when they actually should sell their produce. And the second problem that we work on is to see if they could also decide whom they want to really sell their produce to after harvest. We basically came about these two problems because that's what we see, that immediately after harvest, the prices are very, very low. And it is at those prices that farmers are normally forced to sell, knowing fully well that if they could hold on to that produce for a few months, they could actually earn much more. Unfortunately, that choice has not been exercised by farmers, and that's the problem that we try and solve for, that if we could help them decide when they should actually sell after harvest, probably there's a lot of value that they could derive out of it. And also, when they sell, do they have the choice really to decide whom they want to sell that produce to? So if they could actually reach out to buyers outside of their network, is when they could make probably a higher income than what they actually did. So I think that's what we tend to solve. In terms of, you asked me about tailwinds, I think the whole idea that there is more awareness amongst farmers, amongst the producing community as to what markets can offer, and hence the whole ability to understand, accept, and adopt different models of interacting with markets and interacting with post-harvest solutions is something which has been a great tailwind. In terms of a challenge, I think it is not so much with respect to the markets. I think it's about other stakeholders. So when we run businesses, your business is not just dependent on your own energy and what you can do and what you believe you can do. It also is determined by who are the partners who support you in that. And this whole ability for the ecosystem to understand that some of these post-harvest interventions are actually can make a large difference in terms of what the producing community can earn is one challenge. So how do you change those mindsets to say that, it is actually profitable servicing an FPO. It is actually, as an agri-tech which is working in the post-harvest ecosystem, you can actually make money. While not making sure that your customer, which is the farmer or the FPO, bleeds while you make money. So I think that is a challenge that I face. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Prithwi Singh. I am co-founder of Khetika. It's basically clean food brand in staples space. We actually serve in categories like spices, dry fruits, and then value-added categories, fresh, which has batters and chutneys, and then other staples like peanuts, pulses, rice, etc. So basically, majorly now we are solving the problem for the consumers, because today there is a huge adulteration in these categories. And there are 4 kind of adulterations mainly, which we see in this. One is on the ingredient level adulteration. Like spices is one of the most adulterated commodity today, or say product category today. It is true for all the categories. So one is ingredient level adulteration. Second is about supply chain creates adulteration, which is in form of, say, for example, adding some, artificial polishing, look and feel being good, or to reduce the cost, something. So fragmented supply chain creates the problem in the adulteration happens. Third is in the processing, which happens at the scale. So the brand penetration is at the varied degree on different products. Commodities like spices, the highest brand penetration. Fresh, of course, batters has more than that. So processing at the scale always was the focus, and hence nobody focused on nutrition preserving processing. So that's also a form of nutrition degradation in form of adulteration, you can say, or degradation. And fourth is people add to increase the shelf life in any product, they add preservative and everything. So these are the problems which are there. So biggest challenge was there is no playbook available to solve any of these 4. And that is what we are solving as a challenge. And but there is a tailwind we are getting, and very big tailwind is consumer awareness towards the health, which is what we are getting, and that is what is, making it easier that you have your North Star already clear, where you want to reach to. And that's what our brand is today, trying to reach to and achieve all these parameters.
Any one challenge, if you were to outline?
Yeah, so one challenge is, the biggest challenge I would put it is, in the staples, this is a problem of scale. You cannot solve if you don't understand scale well in all the parameters. For example, if I talk about cumin, you can't source cumin at lower scale, right? Then you have processing, you can't do at the lower scale. So everything has been, it's a problem of scale, which makes it more complicated, all these 4 problems, and there is no playbook available.
Hi, good evening, everyone. As you said, last session, and people are quite less. And I think one more thing I was reading, that probably the post-harvest is not the one of the fancy and glamorous area. But if you look seriously, post-harvest, in fact, is the most crucial area where whatever the hard work done by farmers, it is really going to materialize, and not only farmers earning, but all our livelihood. If you see the official number, it's about 8% losses, but unofficial numbers are, I think, 20% plus losses, and that goes about 30 million of losses. So yes, this is looks not glamorous, but we are really at the forefront. Okay, coming back to me, I represent GrainPro. GrainPro is one of the multinational organization for last 30 years in the market, but they are working on organic growth. We help farmers and the warehousing companies to preserve their commodity without using any chemical or fertilizer or pesticides. We create a hermetic solution. We create warehousing based on hermetic solution. We have solution for drying the commodity without increasing the heat. We have solution for transporting the commodities over the European continent or over the sea for months without getting contaminated, the commodity. We are getting the tailwind from the same side. I like the awareness is increasing as people are well aware that, okay, organics or without using chemical, the food is more good for health. So that is helping us. What is challenging is these solutions are really going slow in the market acceptance-wise. We are trying to collaborate with different organizations, warehousing companies, government, and trying to promote this. We are seeing now a good outreach and a good acceptance. So, and it's also having a lot of possibility of improving, going along, working with this organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us. So I'm Deepak, founder, CEO of Green Power Labs. Green Power Labs, what we do, we are a biotech company. We have a portfolio of products to extend the shelf life of fruits and vegetables during long distance transport and long storage. So we have different physical packaging solutions, and we also have digital solutions to better quantify the quality and also maintain the quality. I think the tailwind for us, one of the major tailwinds for last 2 years is India's focus on export markets has been a huge, and we doubled down on that really well. That has opened up a great opportunity for us across commodities like banana, mangoes, and other, grapes and stuff. The challenges, I think there are a couple of challenges. Being a biotech company, the regulatory side and scaling is a huge challenge. And we use technology across all our products in different forms. So we don't have like a set of process systems. Everything has to be changed for how we are looking at. And the same thing for regulatory. The spaces what we are doing, it's a new category altogether. Setting up the regulatory process, working with different agencies for that's been a huge challenge for us. But yeah, thanks.
Ashwin?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Ashwin Pavde. I'm one of the co-founder of S4S Technologies. S4S Technology is a full stack agri-processing platform. So we work on 2 ways. One is we procure directly from the farmers through our VLCC, Village Level Collection Center model. Once we collect all this produce, we segregate it based on quality and then decide either to sell or process it. So we sell the best quality material while cosmetically inferior but perfectly edible product that we send back to our processing centers. In our processing centers, we are working on basically 2 lines. One is horticulture, where we have developed various proprietary technologies for dehydration of horticulture products like onion, ginger, turmeric, garlic, tomato, leafy vegetable, beans, and so on and so forth. In grains, we have developed technologies to convert the cereals into value-added products. So, for example, we have developed technologies for converting maize into maize grids as well as maize starch, processing cassava into cassava starch, pulses, and other things. So that's our model. We are working with close to 4,500 micro-entrepreneurs across 3 states, Maharashtra, Odisha, and Andhra Pradesh. And we are recently doing our expansion in West Africa and trying to develop it as a sourcing and processing cluster to get geography arbitrage. The tailwind for our business, I think, is the consumption pattern. Post-pandemic, the consumption of processed and ready-to-eat, ready-to-cook products has increased in double digits. And I think that's a tailwind. And the biggest challenge to our business model is the climate change and allied events. So this season, only the early onset of monsoon, almost the monsoon is 2 months earlier, at least in Maharashtra. So all our processing technologies are based on solar energy. And our production from the field reduced by almost 40%. So that's one of the biggest challenge. Thank you.
No, amazing. Thank you. So, like a lot of common traits around demand-driven tailwinds, whether it's exports or it's consumer behavior, resonance with the challenges as well. I'd like to just double-click on some of the themes that we had, discussed that we'd leave with the panel with. Prasanna, to you, maybe if you can take a stab at this, that post-harvest typically, is a set of solutions and not a point solution, right? It needs a integrated approach about how you time markets, different solutions coming together for value capture to happen across, the grower, the processor, trader, the financiers, and so on and so forth. And because you have a view in many of these, if not all segments, would love to get your take on how do you see that integrated approach happen, and what are some of the examples of collaboration therein that you see the ecosystem doing between, let's say, 10 years ago and today? Like, what has changed in that aspect?
Sure, Subhadip. In fact, as you mentioned, that's been our key learning, that when we talk about the post-harvest ecosystem, harvest is just one point. And then there are multiple steps, and each step adds a certain value to the farmer and the grower. As a player, the more that you can integrate, more is your relevance. And that's how, is the higher value to your customer. And which is where, when we started out, we thought that, okay, probably you could offer storage as a solution so that farmers can decide to sell when the price is right. But then you realize that if you just talk about storage, if you are a farmer and I tell you that, Shubhadeep, prices in 4 months will go up, that I'm nobody to tell you this. Second is that you are selling at that time when the prices are low, knowing well that the prices will move up, is because you need that money. Now, how do you make sure that you wait to sell but still get money? And which is where embedding finance becomes important. So if I don't embed finance, storage is a non-starter. Then we realized that you can actually give out a loan to Shubhadeep so that he can store the produce and wait for the right time to sell. But then if he doesn't sell, he will not get the money to repay the loan. So each of these are connected to each other. Similarly, when you sell, the buyer expects a certain quality, and the buyer is not going to pay you immediately. So it is a problem upon a problem upon a problem. And hence, it's also an opportunity upon an opportunity and an opportunity upon that. So I think as a business, each one of us, I'm sure, when we look at that problem, we are not looking at a single point problem to solve. And it is about what capability we have, what are the different solutions that we can intertwine as we build that overall integrated answer to your problem as a producer. So over all these years, we've been now almost about 12, 13 years and sort of working on this, struggling, thriving, etc. But the core learning has been that each of these layers is basically a problem of trust. The trust that the farmer doesn't have on a warehouse owner, the trust that the lender doesn't have on the farmer, the trust that the buyer doesn't have on the farmer and the farmer doesn't have on the buyer. And hence, as a platform, what we are really solving for is trust. And if we are able to solve that, then each of these are only layers or levers to solve for trust, whether it is storage, financing, market linkages, payments, etc. So, and the moment you have that shift in your vision, it is only logical that you look at intertwined solutions. So I think that's how it has really worked. I mean, you asked about certain examples. I think the whole idea to say that how do we bridge that trust gap between, say, a warehouse owner and a depositor is by saying that when you go out and book a hotel on booking.com or on Airbnb, you know what all is available in that home or in that villa or whatever that you're booking. Similarly, can I bridge that trust by saying when you're looking at warehouses, you could actually evaluate that warehouse on 100 parameters that anybody is looking for before they book a warehouse. And hence, can I create an Airbnb of agri-warehouses for India? And that is how we've been able to say digitize about 13,000 warehouses across the country. And then the whole idea is to say that that trust, which now the depositor has on a warehouse, can that be translated into a bank? And the bank says, yes, I can actually lend because it is stored in a secured place and there is a commodity which backs my loan. So I think that's how we've been able to bring together multiple players across the ecosystem to build a set of services.
No, super interesting. Thank you for that. So clearly collaboration is important and critical, and I'm sure all of you in some shape or form do end up collaborating. Would love to hear some examples maybe from anyone, Praveen, Prithvi, in terms of some of the areas where you have seen collaboration happen. Do we talk about it enough? Is it unseen in this? How important is it? And things like that. I think that will be great to understand. And even for, businesses which are building now or some of the entrepreneurs who want to look at this space, I think it will leave a interesting, suggestion for them that how to kind of end of the day reach out to different parties and work together. So any practical examples that you might have seen in the business, working with each other or other stakeholders also would be great.
Yeah, so I think it needed integrated approach to solve the problem, because of many parts of the problem. However, when you are solving the integrated problem, some of the parts can be solved in 2-3 problems together, and some of them can be even taken individually, but approach has to be integrated. And I think that's where the main approach which I think is needed is value addition. That like we as a brand, if we are serving to the customer, then we need to give value addition which is clean label. And if I am planning to do that, if I want to do, then I need to do value addition in every stage. And to do the value addition and to have integrated approach, because for example, if you are giving toxin-free products, I can't give until unless I'm sourcing also toxin-free. If I'm storing also toxin-free, I'm transporting in a way, processing happens that no nutrition degradation happened, all that. So collaboration is important definitely here. But at the same time, when you're choosing the collaboration, you need to keep some lens on it. And the biggest lens is, according to me, is whether there is real value addition happening with the partners or not. It's just collaboration for sake of collaboration won't work. So I'll give an example. For example, if we are buying, say, so we are sourcing, say, makhana, for example, from Bihar. Now we want to store that, so we need an agri-warehousing solution. And then one is storage needed. The kind of quality we are building, we need that degree of, kind of storage capabilities also. It can't be any storage because we are giving a premium product on that. Then financing needed. Some banks says we don't do in that area, some banks says we don't do in that crop, So collaboration is definitely a way to go for that, but I think one benchmark should be clear-cut value addition in that, and each of the player, if we'll do the value addition in that, and then you identify from that lens that these are the guys who are doing the value addition on that, and then it should not be very short-term solution of value addition also, or collaboration also can't be short-term. It has to be long-term view, because this food itself is a high gestation period. In this season of crop, you understand, you implement that in next season. So for you, somebody else, it may be for the consumer, my consumer who is buying from me, say spices or say batter, they are buying every day, or say once in a month, or say twice in a month. But when I'm buying from farmer, I need to learn and I replicate in 1 year after that. That is the gap and the gestation. So collaboration is definitely a way for that. And at the same time, it's also, like he mentioned, trust is a critical factor. So which means more transparency builds the trust. So like we are open and tell our supply chain partners wherever we need, this is how we do it, and we train them to take to that level. And it is not only related to even post-harvest, it has to go to pre-harvest also. The kind of, for example, we are a clean label brand, so if I'll get something which is, and then pesticides are there, so I need to work before that also, right? So I think the right way is to see the value addition. Even at the farmer level, value addition is happening that you are telling best practices. But your value addition is, are you buying after you told them best practices and then followed it? Then you can't go and say that today the prices were this and that. So of course you need to see your commercial aspect, but you need to take care of in the ecosystem also who is dependent on you, how you are solving their issues as well.
Correct. So value addition being critical to any collaboration is the point you're making. Any tangible examples also, no question is open to anyone, but any tangible examples where you've seen it work or not work for that matter, right? Which has kind of taught you as a business of how to collaborate more efficiently would be great to put out.
Yeah, I say the collaboration, I think it is essential nowadays. Like everyone has their own specialty, and everyone is looking for a different kind of solution. And somebody has the solution, somebody has the source. Okay. Recently, we did a collaboration with one of the major, I don't want to take the name, one of the major organic brand. And what this is, like you're saying, the sourcing from a farmer, for example, does the farmer has the organic environment, or he is maintaining it a small storage using without any chemical. So what this organic brand did is they collaborated with us. They took our solution because those people cannot invest that money. So they invested on behalf of these people, and they said, okay, you store like this. And our people went there, trained them. Okay, now the cycle is complete. Okay, so I think each one of us comes somewhere, and it is becoming nowadays, I think, essential. The collaboration is a must.
Hi. So as I mentioned, we are into grain processing, and we have collaborated with Arya in Bihar, and they are managing all our grains. So we know how to source, we know how to process, but we don't have expertise in storage. And again, as he rightly mentioned, that we are also getting loans again that stored facility because it is state of art. So that's a collaboration I wanted to mention because both of us are sitting here, and we are playing with on our forte.
Got it. Okay, moving on to the kind of topic that we were tasked with is, what about innovation? We tend to use the word also pretty liberally. And I think this is a space where innovation is kind of underhyped, as I was making the statement that there is a lot of small innovation which is happening, small incremental innovations which is happening in the post-harvest space, but I guess it doesn't surface too much. But in all your efforts and all your businesses, if again, and pardon me for being the repetitive moderator here, with examples, if you could help us understand examples of innovation in the last maybe 5-7 years that you have seen in the business, maybe the last 5 years, of how one specific innovation has kind of helped your business or businesses that you interact with really change and evolve to the next level, that will be amazing. Again, maybe Ashwin, you could start from here and then move around.
Yeah, so our whole venture is backed on the basis of our innovation. So the technology that we have developed are all in-house. So we have this proprietary solar dehydration technology, which is patented and all. But again, the innovation, it needs to be lively. So we have to take it on the field. Again, we have to do continuous iterations, make it suitable for the end users and make it appropriate for the end users. Then only it matters and it works. So that's my point. And another innovation, which is not ours, but which has helped us immensely is UPI. Because of this, it is very smooth to do the digital transactions, which was next to impossible before 10 years maybe. Thank you.
I think the point what you made, maybe a small innovation, but the impact is more. That's something we have seen recently. So our core technology, the biotech products to like control the internal biochemical pathways to extend the shelf life, that's the core technology. But recently we have launched another product, which is a moisture absorber for the banana export market. Previously, they were using germination paper, like papers which was used for seed germination. They were using it in banana exports to absorb moisture. So we went with a product which is 3x better than that. It was a very, very basic innovation product where it can absorb the moisture. And then we brought in a new process where it can retain the moisture. It'll make sure there's no wet water on the surface. That's actually scaling up more than our core product. So commercially, this new innovation has done more volumes than our core product because it was easy to show and easy to see the value. I think the perspective what we have got now is the innovation has to show a progress for the customers. If they see the progress, what we call it as a time to value. If the time to value is the shortest, and that too in the post hours, if it can be shortest, that's where your value, your product is going to scale and move forward. So yeah, I think that's a concrete example which has worked out well for us. So
Interesting.
Yes, hello. Yeah, ours is not a new innovation, but I will say it's really now taking the shape and really going to the market. The hermetic technology is an age-old concept, but to make it use in a common, in a normal way without any tools, that's what we try to do. And to preserve the commodity for longer period, we made some modification to how to fumigate easily the CO2, the inert gas, and that made it instant successful. So control the, of course, the moisture is controlled when the dry commodities are kept into. We put a sensor in that so you can know the inside moisture level on your dashboard, and then you monitor the CO2 or oxygen, whichever one. So oxygen level, try to keep it below, around below 6, around 5 and 6%. So even if it is seeds are there, they are not dead, they are live, and there is no infestation further possible. So we use the age-old knowledge, make it sure that it is commercially viable and goes to the masses.
Yeah, so I think when the thought process is clear that where we want to reach to, like for example, we want to give clean food to the customers, then I think it needs continuous innovation also. So in our case, like for example, in the batters case, we saw that there were, when we launched our dosa batters, we saw there is a puffing which was coming and how to control it. So we checked the source, microbial source, we found water was a source. So we started pasteurizing water. We are actually first in the country who are not only doing the RO water used, we are pasteurizing the water. Then we launched high protein range and we found it was getting sour. Then the market, lot of player adds acidity regulators and all. So if you are a clean label brand, we have a clear cut thought process that will not do these shortcuts on that. And lot of after R&D and all playbook, we found that if you grind at 4-degree temperature, sourness does not come. Some of the learning, of course, comes from age-old learning that you maintain. Similarly, today grinding happening at very high temperature. So how do you get the low RPM grinding and make it sustainable at scale? So we launched traditional stone ground batter. Of course, it was not an invention. It was like we got it from age-old knowledge, but then we integrated with modern SCADA systems, and then build it at this scale. So I think if your approach is very clear, if you know what you want to deliver, then innovation and value addition is only the path.
Very interesting example.
Yeah. So for at least in our understanding, while innovation as a term appears to be very sort of large and heavy, what we've seen is that there are actually very small kind of steps, more process-oriented in the current sort of ecosystem, which has brought about large-scale changes for us. As I was saying, one is the moment you just sort of digitized all agri warehouses on one platform, the ability to discover warehouses was fairly simple. It just gave us an immediate edge to say if there was somebody else looking for a warehouse, they would take 5 days to identify what a relevant warehouse is. I could do it in less than a minute. Similarly, things around finance. When you embedded finance, who is going to lend? Who is willing to lend to this particular farmer? Now, earlier the process was fairly sort of, very, very old school. The moment you digitized the profile of the farmer or the borrower, and then you had a grain commodity balance, which was now electronic, the decision was instantaneous. And which is where I think there was a huge step change from saying that, the farmer doesn't have to wait for 3 days to get a loan. It can happen in actually 3 minutes. And the money is in the account of the farmer, while making sure that the farmer knows each and every aspect about that loan, because the farmer is, or the FPO, CEO, whoever is sort of borrowing, is able to just go and see each and every aspect and accept it before the loan gets credited into the borrower's account. Similarly, one of the key things that we noticed is that, when we talk about market linkages, the farmer's produce is most often completely abused. There is a produce which is clearly differentiated, but is sold under public procurement as fair average quality. The moment you are able to differentiate saying this particular paddy is of this variety, this quality, there is a separate set of buyers who are willing to pay a premium of 10 to 12% on that same produce on that same day. So the innovation is about saying how do you connect these two sets and make sure that they get the right prices. The final bit that that we saw as an example was how do you make sure that there is a buyer who's willing to pay the best price, but the buyer has a certain norm of payment. The buyer says I can pay after 10 days of me procuring because that's the norm. Now, if I go out and say best quality maal hai sir, लेकिन पेमेंट अभी करना पड़ेगा, the guy is not going to purchase. Now, what is it that is needed to bridge that particular gap? I call it huge innovation because the moment you say I can bridge it, where the seller receives the money immediately, but the buyer can pay in 7 days or 10 days, whatever. And that is what are these kind of clear, kind of interventions, process interventions, which are supported by technology, which can make huge differences. And also on your last point, I think, one of the core issues when we started out that we faced was that whether it was storage or it was markets, they followed warehouses. If warehouse existed there, then you could think of finance, then you could think of market linkages from there. And that is the mold that we had to break because warehouses are not everywhere. And which is where I think, the collaboration that you were talking about, when we met GrainPro and we figured what that solution was, it became modular. You could set up a warehouse here and I can store it tomorrow. You tell me 300 tons to be stored here and financed. You had to go, talk to an insurance company saying, boss, isko bhi insure kar do. Now, how do you make sure that each of these becomes seamless? And I think that is the sort of journey that we are all a part of at this point.
No, very interesting. So somewhere it's to do a lot more with product-led innovation. Somewhere it's a little bit of process innovation and solving for one of these problems. I think the critical aspect which all of you are talking about is how do you solve for trust and how do you solve for one by one pain point removal. I don't know if it's incorrectly worded, but that seems to be the sentiment. Fair enough. Let's move into slightly a higher gear, a more optimistic gear in terms of what are things that excite you for the future as businesses, as operators in the space, and as a country and as somebody in the post-harvest space, maybe Ashwin starting with you, what is that one trend or two trends that you really think can help us catapult this industry into the next orbit?
Yeah, thank you. I think as I mentioned, the tailwind is basically the consumption pattern. And also in the prior session, one of the speaker mentioned that we are always seeking for exports, but India is like 1/6 of the whole global market. And anything we produce gets consumed here. But slowly, Indian consumers are also getting quality conscious. It's not something that you dump and they will procure it. So differentiating the quality and differentiating the markets for that, I think this could be one of the aspect where we need to work, and there's the business.
So like look at even local markets and segregating that based on quality and
Yep, yep.
catering to that is basically one.
Yep.
Okay, Deepak.
I think one challenge or one opportunity what we've understood is, I mean, India is the most complex market to build any innovation on. India being the second largest, India being the second largest producer of fruits and vegetables and other commodities, but it's also equally challenging to build innovation and make it work across the country. So one opportunity which we are more excited about is because we have built it for the complex market, when we go to international markets, we are able to push in the product in much better. So now we are trying to get into Philippines, Ecuador. So we understand the problem statement more deeper because we have solved it for Indian market. That's something we are super excited about, and that's a leverage what we can take. Being a company from India, build it for the India, spend last several years understanding the market, getting into more mature markets is easier. So that's something we are excited about.
Hi. From our set of segment, I think the opportunities are just doubling up every year. Okay, as the awareness is increasing that this chemical and preservatives, the people are moving to organics. So as soon as that message goes to the manufacturers, then they look for the solution and where we come in picture. So I see its opportunity is definitely doubling up. And for that sense, like as I said, we are a multinational company, but now proudly I can say I have made the India as about, we are sourcing and manufacturing about more than 60% of our global supplies. So we are really happy and we are looking forward. This is really encouraging.
Yeah, so I am looking at 3 mega trends today in this space we are operating. One is definitely health. We spoke about awareness about health. The second mega trend is convenience. Consumer want convenience. They don't want to build, say, batter, or they don't want to even have the spices also whole. They want just ready-made gravies. Or third mega trend is coming is Indian palate. Now, Indian people, wherever they are in the world, or the South Asian, they are unapologetic and trying more and more Indian palate taste, or whether you have clothing or you have tourism everywhere. So it means Khetika we are in the center of these 3 mega trends. And what excites me is that if you want to truly deliver this to consumer as an experience, you need to transform from sourcing itself. That's a start. Which means that the farmer level, everything is going to change the way it is happening because there is already demand there. And if the operator in between is ready to do that, which means they will have to, somebody will do and harness that, it's opportunity, And as a Khetika, I am super excited that we are going to work aggressively at sourcing side, opening more farmer knowledge centers to train them, and thankfully, farmer is also educated now. They are also similarly aware as much as consumer is aware. They also have the same access of YouTubes and same access of all the channels, and they are aware. Next generation is educated. So I'm super excited about this change which is coming directly to the farmer level because of consumers level, getting aware, and they are in center of all these 3 trends. Like convenience is there. I need only freshest thing within the minutes, right? So technology needs to solve it. Earlier we used to think shelf life needs to be very high and all. We are thinking other ways. We don't need even shelf life. We need to make it reach faster to the customer from farmer, and keep it as fresh as possible kind of thing. So I think this entire transformation happening is really making, this entire, I see in a decade's time today in India, clean food brands are 2%. It would become 30% in decade's time. And that would imagine the change which will do at farmers level,
I really look forward to 2 interventions. One is the digital inclusion of farmers. And the second is the creation of digital public infrastructure with respect to the farmers and their farmlands. I think with these two things, I really am very, very optimistic about what is possible and the opportunities that it would really open up for all of us.
Oh, amazing. I think it's an incredible time to, I think, be in the space. That's the takeaway we can all work in. And to conclude again, thank you so very much for all the insights and the openness on examples. I don't know if there are any, but yes, wonderful. So we have an engaged audience. Would love to open it up for some questions. I think we can hear you directly.
Thanks, Prasanna. Now, this is an amazing panel, and I don't know if this combination was by design. I need to check with Abhijit and Hemendra. But the fact that there is collaboration across panelists was amazing. And more so, as Praveerji mentioned in the beginning, maybe this area is not so attractive, hence the people are fewer in the hall. But the fact of the matter is, as Prasanna mentioned, this is where the value delivery starts. Production to ho jayega, but if Prithvi's business is not going to get the right raw material, or the consumer that Ashwin wants to reach out to is not going to get it, the logistics part is missing, then everything else is gone to waste, right? Which is not good business for Deepak. That kind of waste Deepak doesn't want to deal with. So this is really, how do we replicate? This is my first question, right? Replicate as in, not scale, but we do several of these. That's one. Second is, I know somewhere in the middle, all of you have talked about small farmers and so on and so forth. What is it that is different that you guys are doing in dealing with those people? Because what we've heard in the last 2 years and over several years is the tech that gets developed is not necessarily amenable to small farmer, right? So if you can address these two, there's several more, but I think since you all have chai, maybe you can address this. Thanks.
We can probably do a charcha over it, sure. So two parts to the question, right? One is on the technology and stakeholder kind of matching. How does it enable you to reach your end stakeholder? And I think maybe Ashwin, Prasanna, you could, since you're more closer to the kind of growers, maybe take a first stab at the question.
Yeah. I'll go at this. In terms of, one of the things that we learned is that as entrepreneurs, sometimes we start with this messiah syndrome, which is to say that I know it all and I am here to redeem the lives of the farmers. And that is when I think, a lot of these issues come in, because we don't embed these innovations in the lives of the customers that we are trying to really service. And which is where one realized that, innovation doesn't have to be some fancy product, some real kind of, something to do with AI, etc., whatever. It has to do with what is the problem that your customer is facing. A small issue, for example, I can give you an example of what happened with us. We thought that, let us build like a end-to-end loan disbursement model where farmers can get a loan immediately. I mean, that the problem was right, but the solution we came up with was built on a platform which needed a smartphone. And then we spent a lot of money on it. We realized that 60-70% of the farmers and FPOs and their members that we work with don't have smartphones. Now, what do you do with it? The whole investment just went down the drain. Then you realize that probably something very simple as an SMS-based solution could probably solve for this. So, which is where I think two issues that we figured later was that, one, it has to be embedded in the reality of the customer that you are serving. Second is it has to clearly solve a problem of his, not my perceived problem. That they had a problem, मुझे नहीं पता सर कि आपने मुझे बोला 12% पे लोन मिलेगा, लेकिन 14% कट गया. मुझे तो किसी ने बताया ही नहीं. मेरा सर ये अकाउंट नंबर था, मुझे मालूम ही नहीं आपने किसी दूसरे अकाउंट में लोन ट्रांसफर कर दिया. The moment you said, we will let you know that this is the loan account, this is the account number into which the loan proceeds will go, and you will verify it. And second, that what is the price of the commodity today, which will be considered for applying the loan to value. The moment you just said these two things, the adoption rate went up from 30% to 95%. So to me, the whole basic problem there is that these problems are fairly simple. They don't need very fancy solutions. It needs solutions that my customer can use, appreciate, and understand. And the moment we bridged that gap and we came out of that Messiah syndrome to say, I really don't know a shit. And it is something that, my customer is telling me what the customer is really facing. I think a lot of that got bridged.
Oh, that's a great example. Any others?
Yeah. So basically, I think we take an approach is if we want to make scalable, then technology is the one approach which definitely has to be there, keeping in mind the current context. However, it has to be at a first principle basis. Solution should be at first principle basis. Like, for example, I don't want to solve farmer's problem. I want farmer to solve my problem so that I can get a clean label, I can do the sourcing, It means we have deployed like Superkhet application. So how do we ensure farmers don't use pesticides and fertilizers and all that, which is pesticides they don't use, which is banned and all. So simply we use a technology Superkhet where we told farmer to give us the transparently this information. And if, of course, there is one test cost 8,000, 10,000 rupees. So there is a huge cost for us also if we do for more testing. So transparently sharing the information, capturing the database from the farmer initially with the help of someone. And then later on we realized that farmer when they saw, so out of say 60% farmer were anyway out the information they shared, 40% didn't share the right information because of whatever reasons. And later on we validated through technology. So if you do consistently, your behavior is a consistent, that this is what I'll do every time, farmer understand it. And if they understand by, suppose for example, if I'll give the right information, they'll take me in a conventional or in the IPM route, they start behaving that way. So ultimately it is consistency in your approach and honesty in your approach will make it solve. And I think technology has to be the base in thinking that way.
I think one pointer, what I think they've covered majority of side. I agree with a lot of things what Prasanna mentioned. We had to transform ourselves into like, how do we speak customer language? Like we were more detached from what was a conversation, what we had to have. So one thing what really helped us, we spent like months and months sitting at the customer place. Like all our team in last 1 year would have traveled at least like twice every month. Like we would just go sit there for a couple of days, understand exactly what's happening. Because when you speak with the customers, you don't know the nuances of a problem. If you don't understand the nuances of a problem, the product integration or usage becomes very challenging. So those are the things which really helped us. So to make the product adopt within the ecosystem. So.
I just wanted to add from Raman's point that, how do we make it replicable? I really think that there is a lot that is happening within this ecosystem. Can I do everything? I cannot do everything. And which is where, the point that you were making about collaborations. There are companies, there are innovations that are happening across. Now, how can we bring each of those things together? I think, while at Omnivore, one of the things that, which Omnivore had supported when we were doing something on the ground, was to see how do we make sure that the farmers actually use soil testing as a service. Now, I don't do soil testing. I have zero knowledge about it. But can I collaborate with somebody? So today we have multiple farm centers, resource centers, where there is an entity, another startup, which is offering that service, which in a way strengthens my service. And how do we sort of bring that together in these pockets of our customers is something which has really helped. I think that is one piece that I would certainly take a lot from as we think of scaling this up.
I think incredibly, it goes to the point which Prithvi was also making earlier, that I think collaboration is possible when there is a clear value addition. where you're willing to basically say that, okay, this is my forte and I'm happy to leave this much of value, and there's somebody else who's actually bridging that, so that the pie kind of increases and it helps both parties scale and reach more number of people. So I guess if that shared unified goal is there, it's also to do with again, as somebody who's spent 14 years on the sidelines, is that it's to do with the maturity of the ecosystem. Now that we have seen businesses which have been there for 15 years, 10 years, 12 years, 8 years, I think there is now a cognizance that we can't do this alone. This is not a one person, one company problem. So let's try and collaborate a lot more with each other. I think that cognizance, even in the morning discussion on the investment side, we were talking about the same thing. That will it take a Dehat, another 10 years for us to see a Dehat scale company emerge? The answer was probably not, right? So it should be a faster journey of scale is what we're hoping for. Any other last questions? Otherwise, I think we're good to wrap. Okay.
No, great panel. And Raman, it wasn't by design, it just happened. But yeah, thanks for lovely panel and great insights. I think one question which I always struggle with, I think this is the best panel to answer that. So if you look at, for example, warehousing, it starts at certain scale, and by default, the large traders, processors, collectives may become the obvious customers, right? Likewise, if you look at processing, milling, grinding, even chilling, dairy processing, there's a certain scale, 100,000 liters, 500,000 liters, million liters. And now we say we want farmer to be partner in value addition, right? So to what extent you think things can be decentralized, be it storage, be it processing? And is there an economic viability? Frankly, you can't do a grant-funded processing unit or a storage unit. How many of those you can do it, right? It has to be economically viable. So what is the right extent of decentralization which is possible where farmer is a partner? So just a question.
Ashwin, do you want to take that?
Sure. Thank you, sir. So one thing, just a case study again from our own work. So typically before we started, the dehydration units, commercial dehydration units, their scale was around 80 to 100 tons per day capacity, and most of them were concentrated in certain pocket of Gujarat. So we developed a technology which is like 1.5 ton per day capacity and operated by 4 or 5 women. So it worked because the dehydration is basically transporting, if we transport a fresh produce, say onion, from the source to a processing center, which is say around 200 kilometers. The ratio of onion to dried onion is 10:1. So you are transporting almost 90% of water, and what you are doing there, you are just evaporating it again. So it worked in our case because we solved this issue. So I think it depends on the product to product and commodity to commodity basis. Likewise, in case of milk, it might work because again, if we want to dehydrate milk, dry the milk, or make the milk powder, it might work. But again, I don't think the technology of spray drying is at that level which can work at a decentralized scale as of now. So it depends again on the readiness of the technology, the complexity of the technology, and again the product, what is the kind of product. So that's my view on this. Anyone?
Hemendra, this is like a very a question that sort of keeps coming again and again, and we struggle with it. Is that, when we talk about decentralization, at least in our business, what we figured is decentralization made sense. Why? Because production happens at the farm gate. Traditionally, storage happens 200 kilometers away. Now, there is a clear cost that somebody is incurring for the transportation to happen, and maybe a large processor or a corporation storing 200 kilometers away. And there was the government which promoted construction of rural go-downs through NABARD and their own subsidies in rural markets. So there was a structural anomaly that demand existed 200 kilometers away, supply existed in decent numbers closer to the farm gate, but that supply was unutilized. Now, what we tried to do was to see that what is that lever which will, in a way, catalyze this supply. And that, in our view and our understanding, was the availability of finance. If you offered finance in a small warehouse, farmers, FPOs, etc., could come and store, and then it propels the rest of the engine. Once they sort of store, there is a loan that goes out, that same store will process, the produce will be sold later, and probably a corporate can be encouraged to come in and procure from a market which is closer to the farm gate. And which is where I think it's important to find some of these levers, why it makes economic sense. Otherwise, we will only have anecdotes to say government ne support kiya, so then I have 2 examples, good pilots, and after that they didn't scale. So I think we have to be a little ruthless also around it to say, okay, what is practically possible which pays for itself? And it would need interventions to say that to get this structural change, probably we needed a Rabo. I mean, not because they are sponsors, but they really sort of helped us change that mindset to say, you know what, you can actually go out and say that there is a risk guarantee. Now, these are probably certain levers which have huge impact. If that support had not come about 8 years ago, probably we wouldn't have been where we are today. So some of those kind of levers are important to identify, and we will need support from organizations like these to come out and say, we believe you, probably we trust you. I don't know you, this has never been done, but we are behind you. Let's see how this works. 10 out of 10, maybe 8 will fail, but 2 that succeed can make a huge difference.
Yeah, just to add on to Prasanna, like our solution, we call it in a way alternate warehousing solution or farm gate solution. And the point there is, we are not able to scale up. It is successful on the places where the farmers are rich or they are supported by a corporate entity or a brand. It's successful, but it's not going beyond that. Okay, so yes, there are solutions. There are farm gate solutions. Like I said, yes, our solution can be installed here and you can keep it for years together. But then it's not, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think this is very interesting question which I keep thinking many point. So in the entire supply chain, the players, there are role. Farmer plays a role of growing the best quality. There is a role of processing, which is processor's role. There is a role of somebody taking supply chain logistic. There is a retailer's role. So farmer's role is growing the best quality, and let's see what value addition to be done there, which means preserving that best quality, not changing the form of that. Today, I think if we look at that lens, so how to preserve the quality? So Amul did in the chillers at the, chillers at the village level. Now, preserving that quality, maybe in India has a land holding which is small. Not necessarily it has to be at each farm level. Maybe it's a community level, it is okay. Still it is a farm gate. It can be FPO level, still it is there. So we need to see 2 things in that also. So one is, according to me, the preserving the quality itself is a very big value addition, and that's where whatever the intervention to be done and make it maybe storage in village level, so that I don't need to get, say we are buying chilies, right? Good quality chilies which need to be stored in a cold temperature. So it has to be at the source location, it can be done, but when you are doing, 2 things needs to be seen in this. One is, of course, whatever economy of scale needs to be got, because ultimately it is the business. Farmer is also in a business, right? So at the same time, if you are preserving better, being decentralized, it will pay. So that's not a problem. So see from the both angle, how much value addition is happening by decentralization, which I think preserving the quality is the biggest value addition. Today, if product goes in, say, Mandi or somewhere, then you can't just, cumin gone, so you can't just bring back to, say, IPM versus conventional or whatever it is. Second approach has to be, one is economy of scale, and second is more, further in that, how to, another mega trend coming is, lot of demand is getting decentralized also. There is so much customization and demand coming, like I said, Indian palette, and Indian palette is not a universal palette. It's like, it's not a uniform palette. It's very, very different palette. And that's a big opportunity coming in different other products. So I think we should look at from that lens. Whatever needed to preserving, whether storage can go, let's go to decentralized level. Whether, cold storage or, for example, cleaning needs to be done, or for example, so I think that lens needs to be kept, and I think decentralization will happen in a massive way at a farmer level also. According to me, more collaboration and make it more scale, but locally scale, and then give it decentralization.
I think one thing to add on to what he mentioned, if the incentives are not aligned towards decentralization, it's going to be very challenging. Because all the products, right, so any post-harvest, we can make it decentralized. At least from our perspective, we can make it decentralized to any location. But because the incentives are not there at that point of touch, that's where a lot of innovations and technologies are not going in. One area where we have seen decentralization work out well is, again, what these guys are doing on the dryer side. The other side, organic produce or any indigenous crop production, we've seen a good success in those areas where it's been decentralized, because of which they're able to control it much better. The overall process is managed well. I think from my perspective, decentralized is challenging on every area. It's going to be selective on places where the incentives are there. That's again my perspective.
Okay, great. Thank you so very much, everyone, for sparing the time and the great insights, and thank you for doing this. I guess we can move on to the next session. Over to you. Thank you so much.